Today we're going to paint a seascape on this collection of boards that I have secured together. I have a link on my website blog of how I do that, how I attach these boards together. This is going to end up being a sign, so I'm going to stencil lettering over top the design. So let's get started. Using this flat 2-inch low Cornell white nylon brush, which I have a link to on my blog, I have put on some of the folk art antiquing medium, and I've spread it with a wet brush. I keep dipping it in water just so it spreads more easily, and it kind of stains this area down below that I am going to use for where the sand is at on my beach scene, my seascape. And then I'm just going to rub it off with a old t-shirt, and it just kind of stains the wood. I've debated on whether to go all the way up with it, but I don't think I'm going to go all the way to the top because I don't think I'm going to sand down. If I was going to sand down to make it look weathered, I would stain all of it. But I'm just going to do here where I want the sand, and I'm going to do a little technique where I add a little texture with some real sand, and I will come back and I will show how I do that. All right, I have gotten some of my Rust-Oleum spar urethane onto my palette here. I did not clean out my brush yet. It still has that antiquing medium in it, and I'm just gonna brush it lightly on here, and it just makes a nice sticky surface. I want it thick enough that it would help the sand to adhere. Let me get a little bit more on this spoon. Okay, and before it dries, I'm going to take some real sand. This is play sand. You can buy at the Home Depot, Lowe's, and I am going to sprinkle it on to these areas that are wet, and it will hopefully stick. Hopefully I have that thick enough. Not all of it will stick because I didn't get that stuff, Rust-Oleum stuff, really thick. And I will let it dry. I'm not sure, yeah, it's sticking in some places. It's a little bit thicker, the sand, than what will really stick on here. But I'll brush off the excess once it's all dry, and then I will go over it with a coat of paint, and then I'll show you what I do after that. Now I'm going to sweep off the excess sand, or the loose sand, with just a little dust broom, and I sweep it onto a little plate. Now I might scrub some of these areas that I think are just a little too thick. My finger, loosen up the excess sand because I just want a bit of grit here and there, not big clumps. And now that that's all cleaned up, I will come back in with my top coat for the sand. Okay, now we're going to do the beach. This sign you could also start from the top and work down, or right now I'm just going to focus on the beach. Forgive my neighbor driving by there. Okay, what I have on my palette is linen, folk art, craft acrylic linen. This is warm white, and this is wicker white. And I'm just kind of loading my brush. This is that number 2 low Cornell, or 2-inch. And I'm just going to work the colors into my brush, and I'm just going to go on here and slap them on. And you'll see there's the striations of the color, a little bit of the background stain shows through, and it looks like I will have to, more than likely, reload my palette. But you see how I'm just putting it on there. You don't want to over blend. Try to go from one side to the other, or you'll get the little brush marks in there. And I don't know if you can see that or not. There's the little bits of sand. And yes, I will have to get more color on my palette. I'll be right back. Okay, we'll continue on. And I've got more on my brush. Now this ocean is going to come down a ways here, so it doesn't matter if I'm getting all that covered or not. And you can kind of make it go around like there's dunes. This is just an abstract, easy, fun piece. There's nothing too exacting about it. So don't overthink it. Just get some movement in there with the colors blending. Now I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Now while the sand dries, I'm going to paint the sky, the sunset. This is going to have like a sunset sky. So I have some yellow ochre, folk art yellow ochre, school bus yellow, and some wicker white. And I'll probably throw in a little bit of terracotta. I'm just going to do like I did before, get the colors on my brush. Right now I'm just going to mix the gold and the burnt, no, what is it? Yellow ochre, I'm sorry. Losing my train of thought here. And I'm just going to streak in the sky. Oops, I didn't want that in there. I'll add a little bit of the yellow. Now I drew a line right here where I want the sun to be. So I'm going to go to that line. And I'm going to try to get good coverage on this. I'll have to put more paint on my brush, or on my palette, because I'm running low, and I'm just trying to get the streaks of color in there. I need to get more white. Let me get the white out. You can use either the multi-surface or the regular folk art paint. I have a blend of both on here, so one just has a more satiny finish than the other. That would be the multi-surface, has a satiny finish, but they're both made to be used on wood. And you just work this until you are happy with it. I'm going to work all the way down to this line that I have for the sun. I'm going to try to keep my line straight. Probably will get a ruler out for when I do the ocean, because I want the line to be pretty straight. Now let's see what I'm going to do. I'm trying to decide if I want it darker at top and come lighter, which is probably the wisest choice, and right now I have it the opposite. But you can always go over it with the white down here and lighten that up. And I've run out of paint on my palette, so I will reload and I'll come back. Well, what I did was I added just a bit more white on my palette because I had enough of the yellow ochre. And I just kind of worked it in to make sure the wood was covered. I had a couple of knots in the wood up there that I wanted to get coverage on. And now I'm going to add just a touch of terracotta on top of this paint. Is still wet. This is folk art terracotta. And I'm just going to brush in a little bit of streaks of the terracotta. I don't want it too... I'll turn my brush on end, try to dry brush it in there a little bit. And you see how it's getting real streaky, and that's really what I want. I don't want it solid. I just want to add the streaks in there as if it's striated with clouds. And if you wanted a brighter orange or red, you can add a brighter touch in there, but I'm liking the terracotta, so I'm going to stick with it. This spot over here is kind of weird, so Now remember, this is going to be a background to wording, a sign. So it's just going to kind of fade into the background. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So it makes it perfect for a beginner to get a satisfying result. All right, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to find something to make a half circle for my sun and find something that's the right size that I can trace around. I don't know if you can see my little half circle. I found a tin bucket that fit the size. Now you can make the sun any size you want. Sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it's larger. This paint dried pretty quickly because this is raw wood, so it just soaks right in. I have wicker white on here. I still have a touch of my warm white, which I'm just going to kind of double load my 3/4 inch brush, a smaller size brush, to kind of paint the sun. Now I'm try to be precise on this, as precise as I possibly can to get the edge of the sun. I tried to make the pencil mark very light because it would easily show through the white. So I get it on there and I just fill in. I'm not real concerned about super opacity because you kind of want that gold to shine through. If not, I'll come back. If it doesn't shine through enough, I'll come back in and add some gold to it. Are you able to get this? Let me zoom in for you a little bit more. I'm just getting the sun painted in. Now if you want a yellow or bright sun, you can do that too. And I'm trying to make sure I get those pencil lines covered. I should have probably done it in chalk. I didn't think. I would just grab the first thing that I had on hand here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry because I'm pulling off paint, and I'll see how I want to touch it up. Now this portion has dried, the sand, and I have just come across with a piece of sandpaper. Let me reach for it, it's over there. And I have just sanded on this to get the paint worn off where the grit that I stuck on to this surface was at. And it just gives it a little bit of added texture. It's here and there, and there's some over there too. And it just gives it, I don't know, it's just something different that I like to do. I will come in and do a little bit more sanding, and then I may go over it a little bit and even fly speck it a little bit to give it more texture. And then I'm going to do the water. If you notice, let me zoom out a little bit. Focus. The sun has a little bit of the orange streaks in it. I'm debating, I'm going to put this upright and look at it. I may want to add some more terracotta around there and then lighten this with some lighter yellow right around the sun, so it looks like that's the brightest spot. And like I said, then we'll do the water. I have laid the ruler here so I can get a very straight line. Now I've put some colors on here. I haven't used these 3 colors before, but I was trying to get a tropical ocean feel, and this is a gray. This is, let's see, thunder gray. This is turquoise, calypso sky, and let me read this one, ocean cruise. So we'll see how this goes as far as making the water. If I don't like it, I can go over it again. But I want the darkest color, and I'll probably come along here with an even darker blue just to give the shading. But right now I wanted a straight line, so I'm using my ruler as a straight edge. And I'm going to just make my line across here. And this is where I will start my ocean colors with my bigger brush. And that gives me my straight line, and I'm off. Oh, my yellow didn't come down far enough. So I will have to fix that later. And right now I'm going to go ahead and do my ocean. Let me stick this brush in the water. And I'm just going to start working my brush into these colors. Not, like, again, too careful. I just am blending them in. And I want to work from the dark, and I didn't do the dark well enough. I'm not going for those colors, so we'll add some more gray. And I can go over this with a darker blue. That's why I'm not worried about continuing on, since even though I'm not really wild about these colors together. And I'm already out because it's raw wood and it's soaking up the paint like crazy. So let me get some different colors on here and we'll go from there. Okay, I found me some dark blue. This is Thunder Blue. And remember on the last one I showed that my horizon line wasn't in the right place. So I just moved my yardstick up, my straight edge, and I'm coming in with this dark blue and I'm raising the horizon line up there. I wanted a dark color on my horizon, and this is a very dark blue. And I'm just working it across there. Now the sun was still a bit wet, I think. Okay, I'm looking at it. I'm doing okay. Like I said, you can pick whatever colors you want. This is just fun art. This is not something that you really have to overthink. And I'm trying to come up to that line. Maybe I'll just put my yardstick up there just so I don't have to worry. And I'm getting the dark blue worked in. And I don't care if there's some of the turquoise showing through. It all will blend just fine. I'm liking the Thunder Blue mixed in there with it. So I'm going to get some more of the other colors on here with the Thunder Blue, and then I'll continue on. Okay, I've settled on my colors. I have the Thunder Blue and the turquoise, and I've double loaded on my brush. I have the gray right there, and I may put some white in later. But right now I'm just going to work this in the two blues. And I'm going to touch some gray as I come down because I want to lighten that as I work my way down. And I'm going to kind of follow this line of the shore. This looks like a pretty stormy sea with all the green and the gray mixed in. But you got the dark, and I'm coming down to a little bit lighter. And then I want it even lighter, so I'm going to bring some white onto my palette. I'm mixing it right on my palette with the other colors. You'll see right there. There's the white, there's a little bit of the gray left. I'm going to go into the gray and the white mostly. Leave the white down towards the shoreline. And you'll see how that lightens it up. So you're getting the graduation of the colors of the dark down to the lighter. And I'm following, I want the shoreline to kind of curve up here. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to come along here soon with something. Okay, now I'm going to drag a little bit of the white up there. Not a lot, but it just gives the... And you can put more white in little strands up there for waves if you want. I'm just making mine more calm sea right now. Okay, and I got a little bit of that turquoise in there. It's like I like. I'm looking it over as I'm talking. That white right there along the edge. Sometimes I don't know when to stop. So there I will get a different brush quickly. And it's kind of a scruffy brush. It's a well-worn brush. I call it scruffy. This is an old brush, and you see the ends are really in sad shape. I'm going to get some more white on my palette in a cleaner area. And you'll see right here, it's in a clean area. And I'm going to dip this brush in it, and I'm going to kind of go along the edge here as if this was foam along the ocean edge. See if I'm getting that. I got a little blue in there, so I need to get a little more white. I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me move it up. It's just an indication. And here's where you could put some white in as like some curling waves. If you want it. And then I'll come in as soon as it's dry and I will darken underneath here, because the underneath as the wave curls is darker than on top. So I'll wait till it dries though. If I try to do it now, I'll just lift the other paint off. And with it laying flat, I don't get a very good visual, and I'll lift it up in a bit to see. I may have gotten too much on here. I may have to straighten out some of the edges of the white because it wouldn't be everywhere that it was foaming. So I'll look at it and see what I want to change. I decided I didn't like the wave things up there, the foam, so I just took my brush, dry brush, and just took some more blue and the turquoise and smoothed it out. And the dry brush is what makes this streaks, meaning that it's not real wet or a lot of paint in it. And then I smoothed out some of these edges along here where I thought it was too foamy or too rigid. So now I am going to get a little bit of burnt umber and water on my brush, and I'm going to fly speck. It's going to add even more texture than the sand. And I'll show you that in just a moment. I'll get my palette ready. So you know how I'm doing this. I got this. This is an old toothbrush. What my husband does to his teeth, I don't know, but he really racks out the toothbrushes. But I'm just getting some of this. I ended up getting real brown. It's not quite as dark as burnt umber, but it will work. And I need to test how big okay, that's perfect size. You see the little flecks there? And I'm just going to go along the base here of my painting and just carefully flick. I try not to get too big of ones. It makes a mess of your fingernail, so you can do it with the end of a paintbrush, or like I can do it off my pencil. No, I can't do it off my pencil. Well, here's a little opener thing, and you can rub. I just feel I have more control with my finger. And okay, I have enough of those, and you can come back in with like the darker colors. I didn't mean darker colors, but the colors of the sand. Like one of them was linen, I think, or the vintage white. Rinse the brown. I'll go over here. Rinse the brown out of my toothbrush. Mix some of the linen in there, and then do the same thing. And carefully just spritz. Now you can't really see this one, but it just goes over top of the other ones, the darker brown, and it just kind of adds a bit more texture. And I'm sure you can't see a thing. Trust me, it's there. And I think that finishes the sand. I don't think I need to darken the horizon. I think it's dark enough. I will lift this up vertically so I can look at it straight on and see if it's to my liking before I will add my lettering. Okay, so it's all dry now, and I sanded around the edges a little bit to just wear it down. I will probably come along with a little bit of that antiquing medium to shadow the worn wood areas here, so it kind of matches here. That's totally optional. You don't have to do that. I just wanted to add that element. Now I'm going to put my stencil down. of the wording. This one says, "It's a good day to have a good day." And I'm going to kind of place like this. I'm not going to do the hand. I'm going to block that out so that I don't stencil that on there, and that way it won't go over top of the sun. I don't want it to do that. And the sun's going to be the focus there. So I'm going to tape this down, block out that hand, and then I'm going to stencil the wording. Now I'm going to start my stenciling. I have charcoal black on my palette, and for the smaller lettering I'm going to use this makeup sponge. I use these a lot in stenciling, lettering stencils onto things, my signs and what have you. And I kind of tap out the excess because you don't want it to bleed, and you just tap very, very lightly. You don't want to press down very hard. What we're going to do is go over it lightly several times, not ever pushing down very hard, because that would squeeze the paint underneath the stencil and make it where it looks ugly. Has these leaky, streaky things. A lot of times I can get away with sanding on the lettering if I've accidentally done that. But on this, I don't want to sand because I don't want to mess up my background at all. So I'm going to go along and just lightly, see, I got a little too much paint on that one. I need to tap off more. And as long as you're not pushing too hard, you won't make it bleed underneath. Now I had thought about, for the larger lettering, trying this larger sponge, so we'll see how that will work. And let me lift it and see if it's bleeding. Nope, it's doing okay. So for larger lettering, which I haven't done this larger lettering in a long time, so I hadn't tested this larger sponge for that purpose yet, so that's why I did that test to see. I'm not real comfortable with it, so I'm kind of going slower. I do have it taped down in several places, and that does help keep it firm to the surface. Sometimes people have gone in, if this was like a solid background and not a painted scene, they stencil first with the same color as the background color, and that kind of seals it, and then it won't bleed as easily. But if you just use a light touch and go over it several times rather than trying to get it completely dark the first time over, you usually will be fine. So these big letterings, I don't have a real large stencil brush, and see, I'm kind of getting the edge in that one, and I don't want that, so I need to get more of it in the paint. Yeah, I'm not liking the way that one's doing that one now, so I need more paint. I do have small stencil brushes, but I don't think that will work for this. So I just go along for the smaller lettering. These little sponges seem to get into the area very well. Okay, you're going to be bored to death watching me do all of this, so I will stop the video here and then show you once I'm done.